Hey everybody, our guest on today's episode of the Power 365 show is Janet Robb. She's a customer success manager in business applications at Microsoft, and she talks about change management and how to use the 8 pillars of change in business transformation that Microsoft uses. But before we get underway with Janet, let me talk for a moment about SalesSpark. Have you taken a look at it yet? This is a new startup that I'm involved in, and it's exciting times for us. Already over 40 partners have joined us from around the world as we go on this journey of sales engagement. That is giving salespeople back 2 to 3 hours a day and more productivity by using a tool that they love and want to use. So if you want to boost your revenues in 2020, go to salespark.com and request a demo or contact me directly. Anyhow, full show notes can be found on this episode at nz365guy.com/180. Now let's get on with the show. Hey Janet, welcome to the Power 365 show.
Hello Mark, how are you?
Good. It's good that we're finally here. We've had a few little technical glitches and issues this morning, but we are now on air and ready to do this recording, and I'm excited about it.
I know, me too. Anything technical and everything just breaks as soon as I touch it.
Janet, I've known you for a very long time, maybe since 2012 was it? 2012, 13?
At least. I actually think it's longer. I actually do think it's longer, Pat. Yeah, we met in Texas.
Oh, we did. Of course, it was longer. Yes, I was thinking the first time was in Dublin, and I came. You were working at Microsoft, and I came and taught a course there. But no, it was in Texas. Wow, that's right.
There's a funny story, Mark. You kept when we met in Dublin, you were telling me it's so rare to have a girl in those days. And I said,
in those
days, and you said, oh yeah, I met a girl once in Texas, and that was me, you idiot.
Yes. How crazy. So anyhow, just so our listeners know who and where you come from, what part of the world do you hail from, and what's it famous for?
Oh, okay. So if you haven't worked out with my accent, I am from Ireland. I'm from the north of Ireland. I'm from Belfast. And Ireland is famous for people that never stop talking, which you already know, Mark, and Guinness, which you've had a few with me over the years. And
Indeed.
And beautiful scenery. I've just had a bit of a tour around Ireland. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, beautiful country. I've spent over a month, I think, in Ireland over my lifetime, and 3 weeks is the longest consistently I've been in Ireland, and I did get to see it all. I didn't get to see it all. I got to see a lot of it. But tell us about your family. What's the story with your family, and where do you play when you're not got your blue badge on and working hard for Microsoft?
So I've just had a birthday. So I'm 44 now, and I feel that I should have a lot more in my
Spring
backpack.
Chicken.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, right. And I don't have a lot in my backpack. I live on my own. I have a mum and a dad who are lovely, and they're quite elderly now. So and I have my cat called Toby, who appears very often in my presentations. I have a particularly, obviously because I've no kids or partner, I have an active social life at 44, which not a lot of 44-year-olds seem to have. And I have to say, I love Portugal. I absolutely, Oh God, yeah. It's just my go-to zen out place. And I'm not one of these people that's going to go surfing or go on their paddle boards. I go with a book. I go with an audiobook. I go with my sunglasses and sangria. That's it.
So is it mainly the Algarve you spend your time, or is it up in the other main cities?
I am absolutely a sun person and sea person. So I'm in the Algarve. I try to go at least twice a year. It was my first time. I was very brave a number of years ago. I felt I was brave and then realised I was just normal. That I was going to go travelling on my own as a single girl. I thought, I'm fed up waiting for people to have to go with. So I went on my own, and I was petrified, and I had the best holiday I have ever had. So good. Yeah, it's brilliant. I solely recommend that people need to go away for a week on their own, find a good bar that does lovely white sangria that gives you, your 5 of the day for fruit, and doze all afternoon. It's not very energetic. Most people are just
I love it.
hand gliding, and I'm lying on a beach.
As in, when I went to Paradiluz in the Algarve, it's a very, a lot of Brits are there, of course, sunning themselves. And it was the Rugby World Cup was on, and it was a few years ago because it wasn't the recent one. And I saw the All Blacks were playing in a bar, and I walked in and it was full of British cheering, and I decided that probably it wasn't the best thing that I cheered the All Blacks in that situation, because I was very much the only voice in a myriad of UK supporters. So,
sweetheart, the one thing about rugby is it's pretty fair game. Everybody would have been tickety-boo with you, especially with you with your charisma, young man.
Hey, so tell us about your journey into Microsoft, because I know you've done a few roles in your time over there, and how did it come about, and what's your magic skills that you implement every day nowadays?
Okay, so I have been involved with Dynamics, hence our first story about we've known each other a long time. So I've been involved with Dynamics since version 3. And before that, I was a coder and implementer, and I was rubbish. God, I'm dyslexic. Don't get me anywhere near coding. But since version 3, I fell in love with Dynamics. I couldn't get over that it took me a bit of configuration to create an auto number for an entity within half an hour. And that was it. I was hooked. So I started developing or configuring, let's use the right phrase, in version 3, and just loved it. And I'm a bit of a showman, as you might know, and I love presenting. I am a big, passionate person for sales, and I'm really, really passionate about only, selling what the customer needs. And I felt Dynamics just fitted everything so well. And so I stayed in a kind of pre-sale role and config role, implementation role. We all wear lots of hats, right? And then I sort of got noticed by people within Microsoft within Ireland, and I took a number of roles, setting up my own Dynamics pre-sales division fully within an organisation. And then I got asked to interview for the TSP. At that point was the technical solution professional within Microsoft Ireland. And we all, as our first 5 minutes explains, I'm not the most technical person in the world, but Dynamics, you don't particularly have to be. And I loved it. So I loved going out and turning people on to the idea of Dynamics. I loved it. I loved troubleshooting, and I also gained a lot of insight into why Dynamics projects sometimes fails. And I really began to hone in on the people element of that change for Dynamics. I then left Microsoft and set up my own business for about 3 years. And I always use this in my presentations, that I never had a website because I'm not technical. I didn't have a work telephone number. I didn't really do LinkedIn, but I was fully employed for 3 years.
Oh, wow. So, how did you do it? Let's unpack that, because a lot of listeners are, they do consider going from time to time and or going independent. And that's really interesting, because 3 years is a good period of time to maintain work coming in. How did you do that without kind of doing all those kind of automatic things that we're told to do, like websites and, set up your corporate identity and things like that?
Basically, because I was in a huff. So what happened was I took very seriously ill. I've had a lot of health issues. I contracted Lyme's disease 7 years ago, and I broke my neck. And so when I left Microsoft, I was pretty darn tired. I was really tired, and I kept telling myself, I was actually made redundant from Microsoft, and I thought, I'll give myself 6 months. And when you say those things, you never actually really mean it. Because inside my little tummy, I panicked. I was like, oh gosh, when's my next work going to happen? And I was out for a walk one morning, and my phone rang. And this woman, who I hadn't a clue who she was, I can't tell you who she was, but in the end, she turned out to be somebody pretty damn important here in the business sector within Microsoft, within Ireland, sorry. And I asked her, how did you get my number? And she said, oh, so and so gave it to me. And I said, right. And they said, they say you're the person to come to if your Dynamics project isn't working. And it literally became word of mouth. It just became, I was the Dynamics girl in Ireland who, if there was a problem with implementation or somebody, I got quite a good trustworthy name. And I genuinely, it was just word of mouth. I also, in my favour, although I said I didn't have a website and didn't have a telephone, etc., what I did do was, I am a bit passionate about community, as you know, and as you are. And about 1 year in, I thought, oh, Janet, you're going to have to up your game and get some of your exams, and you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to do that. And do you know what? They are really expensive. And training courses were really expensive. And I thought that, hold on, I don't have £1,000 to go and spend on a conference or to go to do some learning. And I thought, hold on a minute, I've got a lot of learning and a lot of benefits that I could share. So by pure chance, I had a rant on LinkedIn about customer success, and Raz Chowdhury, is it, how to pronounce his name? Raz Chowdhury? Anyway,
Chowdhury, I think so.
He set up, he'd started 365 Saturday. He'd done one session in Manchester, and he said, why don't you come to London? I've got this thing going called 365 Saturday. It's for sharing, it's for learning, and it's free. So obviously, you know, I'm completely mad because I didn't know this man from Adam, and I jumped on a plane and I flew to London, and I went into Microsoft in Paddington, and I knew some people. And then I decided that afternoon that I was going to get involved, and I was going to create the first free Dynamics conference in Ireland.
Nice.
So my name got about probably because of that as well. And I'm still doing that.
Okay, so that is awesome because, like, I didn't know you were going to take the conversation that way.
Oh,
but
sorry.
a lot of people, no. But what I do like about that is a lot of people say from, what's the point in getting involved in the community? And you know, it was obviously a catalyst in you staying employed for those 3 years. And when you were solo, you know, your name got out there. And I just think that's a brilliant story. And I didn't know that's, you know, was going on through that 3 year period.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then what?
So what happened after that was I was randomly on a train going to work in Dublin. So I'm in Belfast, and I bumped into an old Cork colleague, and he said he had moved teams, and he worked for a team now within Microsoft called the Adoption and Change Management Global Team, whereupon I nearly fell on the floor and went, what? You're telling me that Microsoft is taking adoption a bit more seriously? So got in touch, and I had a job within 3 weeks. And
Wow.
I joined the Adoption and Change Management Global Team as a senior consultant. And this is about 100 people in this team, roughly. And they are specialists in adoption, and they use the ProSci methodology. So in the 3 years that I was working for myself, I didn't work towards any particular methodology, but I worked on a lot of the things that ProSci talk about. So I worked there for about a year and a half in that team. It was a bit hard going with the travel. I was away a lot, but I loved being with my customers. And it's, by the way, it's adoption across all Microsoft technologies. It's not just Dynamics, but that, you know, obviously features. But I missed Dynamics, Mark. I really missed it. I still got heavily involved, as you know, within the conferencing sector. And I was meeting people, and I was talking globally about adoption and change, but I really love Dynamics, and I therefore changed my role within Microsoft about a year ago there to become a customer success manager within the business applications field within the Dynamics whole arena. So F&O, CE, talent, field service, and I adhere to under the customer success unit within Microsoft UK. And it's great that they still allow me to be part of from Belfast. I know I'm part of the UK in Belfast, so I travel over, and I have amazing customers in the UK now. So that's my story.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that's such an interesting journey. So tell us a bit about, you know, change management, and just to preface this is that, one of the pushbacks I've had when I've talked with colleagues, not with customers, but with colleagues, is that, change management is, it's all airy-fairy. It's not tangible. You can't, how can we, from salespeople, if we quote that on our list of services and our competitor doesn't, we'll be more expensive and therefore, we'll lose the bid. So this is a logical first thing to, put the red pen through when or sharpening our pencil on a quote, so to speak. What's your take on that?
Well, let me tell you, I've heard that many times. And I have a very quick story when I've heard it from a salesman said, Janet, they won't buy it. And I said, then you don't know the value of change. So my argument on this is, what is the cost of not managing your change journey? So let's go back 20 years, Mark, maybe even 15 years, when you were putting together a project, costings, and you would have put on that project management. And about 15 years ago, people would put a line through project management. Yeah, that's something we can drop. We don't have to have that anymore. Yeah. And today, it's usually the most expensive, some of the most expensive things on any project costings. And people don't remove it because they understand the value of it. And I'm going to tell you, hand on heart here and now, that is going to be the same for change management over the next couple of years. So in answer to your question on the pushback of sharpening your pencil and cutting it off, you think about when you put a project in, and a customer puts in £1 million. This is all in up. This is going to cost this customer £1 million with licensing and implementation costs and time with their staff coming out of their normal day-to-day job, working along the project team, etc., etc. Now, at what point on that journey does that customer start to see returning investment? And that point in that journey is when the project goes live. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is where change management really comes in. If you have not managed the change journey for your impacted users, okay, so the days are gone where you just say, do it, accept it, do it. Yeah. We all know we have emotions. We all know we have feelings. We all know we have culture within organizations. The day you start to see the returning investment is when you go live. Now, let's imagine you have a workforce of 1,000 people. What? What's this change on day one? What? Are they trained adequately? Do they have a desire to work in the system? Do they understand why they need to work in the system? Etc., etc. So what we discovered within Microsoft and within the ProSci methodology is, if you have managed the change journey adequately and successfully across before the go live, at go live, you will see a quicker return on investment of your £1 million that we just mentioned. But if you haven't managed your change, if people are, what's this? Hold on a minute, I'm not getting involved in this. I still like the old way. I'm not going to do this. Then it takes a much longer time to see the return on an investment. And what usually actually happens is that if you think of a graph, and at go live you expect to see the return on investment going upwards, what usually happens is it plummets down. So what that means is, for example, say the system was within Microsoft Dynamics CE, and we've got people in a call center, and that call center is used to answering 10 calls a day. And now after go live, they can do 2. So we're now costing that business money. Yeah. So there's many ways I can explain we need to get the investment by the customer returned to them quickly. But without the change journey, it takes much, much longer and can in time cost the organization money. A quick story I'll tell you. I worked within an organization that when I was working privately for myself, and I was there to manage the change, and we'd done the training and everybody said they were ready, and I was saying, I'm not so sure these guys are ready. And we actually baselined what would success look like, and that's what you do when you develop a change plan. What is success? What does it look like? And the MD of the organization, I'm making this up now, said X amount of calls a day, being able to key so many orders a day. That is the status quo. So what we did was we brought everybody in a week before go live in the call center and got them to key that week's orders, that last day's orders, and phone calls, etc. And we realized that they weren't able to not only keep up with what they were doing previously the day before, but they would have cost the organisation at least 1 day's worth of orders.
Wow.
So that's why you have to manage the change. There's oh gosh, I could speak for days on different scenarios where the benefit of managing the change. Another quick thing to let you know about is, have you ever been on a diet, Mark?
Many times.
Right. See there? Many times. Why? If you did it right the first time, why did you go back and have to, stop eating those kebabs? Because the reinforcement change is difficult and people go back to their old way. So yeah, they might be excited on day one and everything's fabulous. I call it the cutting of the cake day. But you also have part of the change journey and change plan is putting into effect a resistance management or reinforcement plan. So usually on go live day, a lot of people just pack up their bags and go home because they're finished. Their project's over. No, that is the most difficult part of that change journey, to maintain, to monitor, to ensure that, are you making those 10 calls a day? No. Is Janet making those 10 calls a day? No. Let's go speak to Janet. How do we speak to Janet? How do we encourage Janet? How do we reward and recognition Janet for her good behaviour? There's so much that has to go in place to be monitored to know what the success of that project looks like.
So how do you handle then when somebody goes, listen, this isn't this just about comms and training? Isn't that the role of the project manager?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So if somebody says to me, so a lot of organizations that I used to work with within the practice, I worked in the adoption and change practice, said, yeah, we've got comms and training. Now, that's what you will find on any kind of standard project plan. I've got communications and training. Okay. That is vital and that is needed. But within Microsoft, we see a lot of additional channels that are equally, if not more, necessary. So, for example, our first channel that we insist is on the sponsorship channel. Who's in charge of this project? Who's managing this project? Who's the active and visible executive sponsor involved at all levels within this project? So we would put together plans for that. Now, why would we do that? So I've mentioned that Microsoft uses ProSci, which is a compound word, professional sciences, and it's brilliant. I have to say, I really, really do stand behind it. And it says the number one reason for success of a project, and it's been this for the last 20 years, and they do a biannual report on this, is active and visible executive sponsorship. Now, you're going to say, yeah, we have a sponsor. Everybody will say, I have a sponsor. Yeah, we've got him. But do you really? Like you Mark, you be honest with me. You've worked on lots of projects. Have you really known a sponsor to be very active and visible? I bet you've known good ones, and I bet you've known not so good ones.
I tell you what, the ones that I had ProSci running as part of my delivery, where in our case the CEO, like the particular one I'm thinking of, the CEO got up and launched the actual kickoff of the project, engaged probably once a month to all hands, was a wildly successful project because he was very visible, not just in kind of signing his name to something. He actually got up and, if you like, preached it.
Absolutely. And so what is so the biggest, most successful project I have ever worked on had a very strong, active and visible executive sponsor. But so a lot of the time people get names associated. Yeah, I'll be the sponsor for this, but nobody actually tells them what their role is and what they're expected to do. They think they can tell people just to change because they're usually in a senior role and that's what they do. They tell and it happens. Well, listen, like you say, I've been on a few diets. People don't take to change very well. And also executive sponsors live in what we refer to as the future state because that's where they're meant to live. They're meant to be looking at what's the next thing coming down the road. Well, actually, when we ask them to be a sponsor, we're asking them to stay in the current state. So one of the things that we, there's so much I can talk about on executive sponsorship. I can speak for a whole day on executive sponsorship and what we do and how we coach, on how we build coalitions and how we involve them in the communication planning. But that's just one area that we would focus on the sponsorship. So we would put together a sponsorship plan, when they're meant to speak, who they're built. We would build a coalition. We'd make sure that every impacted group user has a direct link into a sponsor. So when that message from that sponsor is delivered, they will hear it. So the difference is, if I, Janet, don't know who the executive sponsor is and they're sending me a message part of communications, am I likely to read it and am I likely to bother to take it in? But if my direct manager or my exec that I understand and know sends me a message, I will read it. So we build coalitions, and then we do what I see as vital within a Dynamics project. We build subject matter experts and champions networks, and that's what I like to think is my specialist area. We also then go on and we build coaching networks. We build communication plans, training and ability plans. The reason I use the word ability alongside training, so people go on training, and you and I, Mark, so you're much more technical than me, as we've discovered at the start of this session. So if you and I went to a technical session and we both got the half-hour session and you walked out like, and I'm walking out like I'm about to, blow into a paper bag. The reason being, my ability is probably a lot lesser, but you and I have to maybe do the same job or the same role. So there has to be an assessment within Dynamics projects to say, what is the ability level that we need to be successful to for this project when we go live that we don't tank? And people don't do that. They just send you people on training courses. So part of my role would be to assess the ability of what is the ability standard we need to reach. Great, we got it. So when Mark and I are in that training room, and Mark, you're flying, brilliant. Mark passes the test of the ability level, but Janet doesn't. So we're going to encourage Janet. We're going to bring Janet more. We're going to give Janet a bit more help. So I can walk out the door going do eventually, but it might take a lot more than it took you. So, but people don't do that within Dynamics. I'm sure. Garrett, you tell me I'm not wrong, that you've seen Train the Trainer for half a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
A system that is their crucial line of business system. So what's another thing we look at? We look at the ability to keep this project at a status quo, at go live, what standard we need to reach. We also look at resistance management. So resistance is we identify it. And that, by the way, runs along the entire length of the project. So we have people out going, picking up, hearing things. I've created a Power App for capturing resistance management, bringing it back to the mothership, activating what the resistance is. How do we counteract it? What does that mean? Making sure that message goes back to that individual to say, hey, you had an issue with this, but this is why this would fix this. Are you back on board? And we need to continuously counteract resistance. Now, again, Mark, you've worked in this field for a long time. Have you ever come across somebody, Mr. Doom and Gloom, within a project? They ain't going to work. This ain't going to work.
It's quite common, and and particularly, people love the way the old way, they think that they start to look at it and romanticize how awesome the old way is when change starts to happen.
Change is really, really hard. And by the way, those people that are resistant, and if that person is what I call a Jack or a Jill, okay, and the reason I call them Jack and Jills is it's an old names. Okay, so what that means to me is they've been in that company a long time. So they're the people that we all go to when there's a new change. What do you think, Jack? What do you think, Jill? And their word can carry so much more weight. And if I can change Jack and Jill's opinion and get them on board with positive communications to go out to the rest of the teams, then I'm onto a winner. But if I've got a Jack who doesn't like this, and I've gone as far as I've seen individuals sabotage projects with their negativity. So we need to capture it, and we need to monitor it, and we need to manage it. We also look at adoption measuring and monitoring. Okay, people don't do that. So here's my question. I do this, Mark. I'm going to ask you, Mark, have you ever worked on a successful project?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine the project you've got in your head. Just pick one, because I'm sure, because you've been involved, they've been all successful. But pick one. If I then asked the project manager of that project, would they say that project was successful for the same reason?
No.
Okay. Or potentially I could ask an individual within that project and they would say it wasn't successful. Okay. So we need to identify, what does success look like? What are we trying to achieve? I have so many times, Mark, work in executive level meetings, and I'll say, well, guys, did we do it? Did we get there? Is it successful? And they all go, yeah, yeah. And I'll say, and I play a bit of a game. I'll say, well, why was it successful? Exec A. And they'll give me a reason. And it might be a bit woolly. It's usually not quantitative, that's for sure. Exec B, why was it successful? And I'll get a different answer. If we cannot, at the end of the project, define what successful looks like, why are we bothering? Why are we bothering going through this pain and this discomfort and this? What are we doing this for? So one of the things that I would run as part of as a customer success manager for my clients is I would run a success planning workshop. Okay. And part of that is to define why we're doing it and put it quantifiably in place. So for example, again, I keep going back to these 10 phone calls, that we would have a client who was able to successfully complete 10 interactions a day. Now, presently, maybe they're only doing 6, so we're doing a +4. Now, what we then do once we go live is we go and monitor that. And we'll say, Janet only made 9 phone calls this week, and last week she made only 3. What's happening here? And then we go, so we maybe have to look at retraining. We have to look at Janet's ability. We might have to look at the system. Maybe the process is wrong. Because you remember I said I was employed for 3 years? When I worked for myself, most of my employment was on projects that had been live for post 6 months. And I was being told, Janet, it started really well, but we don't know what's happened. And that's if you don't put an adoption and measurement and monitoring system in, then how the heck are you going to know? And the sooner you know, the quicker it is to fix. And the final thing we look at is, sweetheart, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah. The final thing we look at is we create a rewards and recognition program. And I've had clients that say, what? This project, I'm not paying any more money. Rewards doesn't have to be money. Okay. It can be brilliant things. So rewards and recognition is giving people a pat on the back and saying, well done. By the way, I am 100% a pat on the back girl over money. I love to be encouraged. We all do. And a reward could be the exec sponsor walking past Janet's desk and going, Janet, I hear you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. I've also recently been part of building a rewards and recognition app for champions to keep them motivated, to keep them encouraged. We want to also reward new behaviours and celebrate success. So what I mean by that is I'd always do a bit of a joke when I present that when we're doing our monitoring of this new system, and I print a report and I give it to Mark, and Mark goes, well, Janet, it's great, but I now have a dashboard for that. Thank you though, but do you know what the dashboard's coming through? Let me show you. And then that's brilliant. But next week I bring you the report back as I used to for the last 15 years. And you, instead of going, Janet, you're going mad, you go, Janet, that's great. Remember the dashboard? Let me take you back to your desk and show you your dashboard. And the third week, when I don't turn up with the report, you go over and you say, Janet, well done. I've just seen all that work. It's brilliant. It's on my dashboard. Really great work. Thank you very much. It sounds minimal, but rewarding new behaviours helps cement new behaviours. And again, we put a plan for that. Now, I've talked I can talk for frigging Ireland. So there is so many different channels than just communication and training.
Yeah. So have you been in a scenario where, the customer has said, listen, all I need is somebody to get trained and we'll be fine. and how have you handled that?
Yes. The short answer is yes, I have been in that scenario. So I'm lucky enough that within Microsoft sees customer success, as a vital piece. And I'm actually free to a customer within the enterprise level, within Dynamics, within the UK. So it's a bit easier for me in this case because I'm there trying to motivate them into seeing past the training section. So what I will do is I will run what I refer to as the success planning workshop. We run pro-sign methodology, questions and statements and algorithms to explain how maybe complex the project is, how much change we feel like they should need. We talk about sponsorship and champion networks. We talk about training, communication and resistance. And because obviously one thing I love about our team, and I love that my manager says this, the majority of us aren't spring chickens. We have a lot of war wounds. And it's very easy to convince somebody when you can tell them the failure areas of dynamics and what that will cost them financially. Yeah. And it's quite easy to convince them when you tell them what could happen.
Yeah. Do you have kind of examples of where, like, I can imagine there's people maybe be listening here that they're in a project now that is... No, it's gone the wrong way, right? It's not been successful. Could you use some of what you're talking about here? What Microsoft call their 8 pillars, and in ProSci we have ADCAR, and the process of going through. Can change management be brought in after a project has gone downhill to rescue it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to reinforce again, that's most of the time when people start to take change seriously, when they've got their fingers burnt. So one of the first things that we would have ran within Microsoft within adoption practice is what we refer to as a health check. Let's just stop the bus here. Let's see what the problem is. Why did we fail? Now, again, it's a bit like me asking you what success was and then going off to somebody else. Everybody's got a different opinion. So one of the things that I would do is I would go and interview people on a very confidential basis. 100%, it's always confidential. What's going on here? And usually what I find out is not what I've been told why the project failed. So it could be culturally. It could have been resistance. A lot of it's to do with resistance. It could be because the process that has been designed is not the right process. And when I've looked into things before and I've said, who's been involved in the design of this process? And it's been somebody who hasn't got a clue of what the original process was. So they've just designed what they think would be good. So there's many, many reasons, but you have to find out what they are. And then we just basically stop the bus and we do a restart. One of the things you just mentioned there was ProSci's ADCAR, which is ADKAR, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And that is the change journey that you and I both go on when we go on a diet, Mark. Or it's the change journey that we go on when we create a new dynamic system within the organization. So we look at where was the awareness of this project? How did we communicate? Who communicated? What were the messages? The desire is the what's in it for me. And that means what's in it for Janet. Because what's in it for Janet is going to be completely different or potentially different for what's in it for Mark. So you have to do investigation of dividing your impacted users into groups. Notice I use impacted users and not end users, because we are impacted in a group of people. And therefore, and that group could be people who are working in a call center, people who are in the accounts division, people who are in the credit control. So each of the desires have to be segmented into those particular impacted groups. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is your training. Yeah, I completely get that training is still very valid. It's training, but the ability is what I talked about earlier. The ability is making sure that, and that's why a lot of projects fail. A lot of them fail because we've been on a training course. It wasn't enough. It wasn't satisfactory. We all have different skill levels and we might plummet. Some might have plummeted, and some might have, held on with their fingernails, and some might have decided to go to the Algarve. But we all know a dynamic system only works when we get all of the information in, not bits and bobs. So we have our ability, and then we look at the reinforcement. So I would look at this potentially in a number of ways. I would look at the ADCAR, the change journey that was represented, and how do we stop the bus and go back to maybe starting some more awareness? How do we stop the bus and creating a desire? I also then potentially then go to my 8 pillars. I look at my sponsor network. I look at a champions network. I look at my coaching networks. I look at my resistance, my adoption, and my rewards and recognition. It can all come post go live. It can, but obviously it's much better that we don't get to that point.
Yeah. So good, so good. If people wanted to, head down a career path or explore more, even go, heck, our project is not where it should be, what resources do you tend to point people to, and what recommendations do you make?
Okay, so I am obsessed with community, as you know, and I love it because I know you agree with me on this, Mark, because we were just giggling earlier about it, how much it's grown over the last 5 years. So I would encourage people to by the way, I encourage my exec customers to do this, to get involved at the community level, at the ground roots level of posting questions, asking for questions, asking for advice, all of those type of things. So get into all of the user groups that are available. So that's where I always find, this is me getting a bit excited about it, I always find the organizations that get involved at community level, so customers getting involved with community, are the most successful customers because they're beginning to leave and breathe it every day. Yeah. But I would also, ProSci has a website, and in that website they offer lots of free material and a lot of good guidance. And they have downloaded books and things for their ADCAR, their change journeys. So I often, now there's lots more change management methodologies. Presently I'm using ProSci, and I do like it. So I do point people to there. And also within Microsoft, we have an adoption website where people can go in and have a look and see things through there as well.
Excellent. I wasn't aware of that. What I'll do is get you to send through some of those links, and what we'll do is make sure we put them in the show notes so folks can, jump on board and take a look at what they are and really and decide where to for them. Is there anything else before we go to some quick fire questions that you'd like to add?
The only thing I would like to add is adoption isn't an add-on. People need to wake up to this. Many years ago, physiotherapy was seen as a fluffy thing. Nobody has an operation now without physiotherapy. People need to wake up to the necessity for adoption. Every project that I have worked on that I've been called into that has failed has been because of adoption. And the last thing I'll end with on this is Microsoft say a project is 30% technical and 70% people.
Yeah.
So
wow.
And I believe that. That's your project management. That's your training. That's your adoption. That's your desire. That's your interest. It's the people is 70% of the success. And yet, Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, that when you go into your project, it's majority of it's technical and building and configuring. And it's really important. I agree, it's important. But it's never seen as important as the people element of the change itself.
I can tell you when attempting to lose weight, it's 100% people in that situation or 100% just me in that situation. But
you're just lovely.
I love that stat. So 30% technical, 70% people. And it really does show how glaringly obvious is. And I've heard so many times people bemoan the technology. And I'm like, it's not, you haven't got a technical issue, you've got a people issue. And so, yes, you're on point. Okay. You ready for some quick fire questions?
Ready.
These are random.
Oh,
but before we jump to that, is anyone you recommend as a guest from within Microsoft for a podcast like this?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll drop them in it.
No, just everyone says their name. Like, I had Hayden Stafford on a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me CVP after CVP of who should be coming on the show.
So I love Hayden. He is great crack. That's a Belfast saying, by the way, for fun. I love Hayden. He's always up for a laugh. So
Yes.
I would recommend Derek McCourt. Okay, and he's a fellow Northern Ireland person, which is again very rare in this industry. He is the director of the customer success unit within
very cool.
Microsoft, and he
I love it.
is pretty darn amazing. And he gets it, and he's passionate, and so therefore he's looking after customer success for Azure, for modern workflows, for business applications. He sees. So I've got my hands up in the air. You can't see. He sees the desire and the passion of getting this right for the customer.
I like
and
it.
he's pretty darn cool. He's really cool as well. And I'm trying to think who else is pretty darn cool within Microsoft. I can't pronounce his name. He's going to get cross with me. Stuart Riddick. Maybe I said that right. He is ridiculously passionate about modern workplace and adoption. And he has created a lot of Power Apps to facilitate this.
Wow,
And I have to
okay.
say, Power Apps is everywhere. And I'm starting to use Power Apps, building Power Apps myself for adoption techniques within champions and reinforcement. And I want to create an arsenal of Power Apps that we can give to customers for free to help with their adoption. But the reason I got involved with Power Apps, and you know, Mark, how many of our friends are Power Apps mad? Like they're literally obsessed. Yet, I sat through a presentation with Stuart and he turned me on for the first time to Power Apps. I thought, oh my God, I could do this.
Wow,
He
that's awesome.
is a fantastic presenter. He made me believe I could do something, and I've started to build an arsenal. And without his motivation and his ability to present at a simplified level, and I don't think it's simplified, I think it's just a level I understood. So he's very good.
Superb. Excellent. Okay, quick fire time. You ready?
Go.
Would you rather have a rewind or a pause button on life?
A pause button.
Okay. What do you believe in despite having no proof of it?
Oh, wow. I believe, let me, that's a hard one. What do I believe? I don't know. Because I used to be very religious, and that's sort of gone out the window. So I don't know anymore.
Yep. I
No
agree.
idea.
I get that. Have you had your 15 minutes of fame yet?
No.
Awesome. What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh, well, it wasn't slightly a haircut. I was 19, because it was just a day before my 19th birthday, and I got my hair permed. And my hair was at my backside when I went in.
Wow.
And when I came out, it was on my shoulders.
Wow.
And in the bar that night, all you could smell was perming lotion. I mean, that's how bad my hair stank. And they broke all the top of my hair. So I had a little mullet at the top.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gorgeous. Yeah, absolutely
Wow.
gorgeous.
If you could have any celebrity be your best friend, who would you pick?
Oh, celebrity to be my best friend. Can it be a fake person?
Sure.
Can it be? I have an obsession with Miss Marple. Agatha Christie's Miss Marple.
Ah, okay. Yes.
So
Very
they're
cool.
not really. But you know why? Because she's like me. She's single. She stood on her own 2 feet. She's smart as a cookie. She likes gardening. I love gardening. I'm obsessed with roses. I cultivate my own roses. And she is got lots of
Nice.
friends. Miss Marple.
I love it. What is one family tradition you will like to carry on in the future?
One family tradition. It's a bit cheeky. And it's a bit cheeky. So we're not a big, we're a very small family. But we have a tendency, and we're not very huggy or kissy either. But we have a tendency when we leave and we say goodbye, I'll walk past a window, or Mum or Dad will walk past a window, and we give each other the finger.
I love it.
So we knock the
That
window,
is superb.
get their attention, and they look up, and they just give them the finger, and everybody laughs.
It's so good. Janet, if people want to connect with you online, what social media channels are you on?
Oh, yeah. So I'm dyslexic. So I'm not great on social media. So your best bit to get me on is LinkedIn. I do have a Twitter account. I'm going to read it. So yeah, you're better to get me on LinkedIn.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Applications MVP, Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/180. See you next time.